Touchdown Tampa Bay, you're listening to the PewterCast.
Welcome to the PewterCast. I am Brent Allen, your host, and I'm joined, as always, by my very good friend, Ren Tutu Sale e Pepe Daxt. Ren, how you doing, buddy?
I'm assuming that's Italian?
It means Ren. He's fun to be around and happy. Daxt.
Yeah.
In Italian. Yes, sir. It is in Italian.
That is me, to the T. Brent's speaking Italian because I'm leaving for probably... before most of you hear this, I will be somewhere across the Atlantic. I am leaving for Italy tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's 11 p.m. on Sunday. Neither of us have seen episode 3 of Game of Thrones, the big one, finally the big battle.
So give us some spoilers, Ren. Do it.
I'm assuming I don't know what's going on. I haven't seen anything.
We'll find out when we're done recording this, because that's what we're going to go do.
We're going to go run watch Game of Thrones.
Yes. But before we get there, Ren, as you said, you're leaving for Italy, and we have our big, super, mega, ultra show that we're going to be doing, wrapping up the draft and all that kind of stuff, where we're going to be joined by some people from some other podcasts, and we're going to kind of, by our powers combined, but some scheduling things made it work out to where we couldn't do that before you left for Italy. So we're going to do this show, just you and me, because I'm sure you have a lot to say coming out of this draft that we just had. This head scratcher, I think, of a draft. That's probably the best way I can describe it. I'm not mad. I'm not pissed off. It's just, I'm curious. I don't know what to think just yet. So we're going to get into that. Yeah, go ahead.
It took me a couple of days. I'm like, I know these people aren't stupid, so what am I missing?
Yeah.
And like I said, it took me a couple of days to sort of like keep working it around in my brain, because after day 2, I woke up, I'm like, well, if we have all this, we got like, 4 or 5 guys in the secondary, all on rookie deals, and then you draft 3 more, well, why does Jason Licht have a job then? Like,
right.
If you're a first or second rounder, you should be able to play in any defense, was the point I was thinking about. But I finally figured out what I think they were thinking, and I just didn't listen to what Bruce Arians was saying. That plain and simple is what happened. He kept telling me what he's going to do, but I didn't believe it, because I just, that must be a smokescreen, because that can't be possible, right. Because I can't be wrong.
Right. And all of a sudden you remember when Bruce Arians says, the best thing is when we tell you that we say something and it's actually the truth, but everybody thinks, he's just lying. Yeah. And he just smiles. So we're going to get into all of that. We're going to get all of that on today's show. By the way, though, Ren, special shout out for this episode specifically. This episode marks our 3rd anniversary as a show. We officially kick off year 4 right now with this episode. This show started with this show 3 years ago after that draft. And so happy birthday to us.
Happy birthday to you.
There we go. Yeah.
You will always be a year older than me.
That is true. You joined us right then at the first
tail end of 1, but officially at the beginning of year 2, the first anniversary.
Yeah. So, and I got to tell you, Ren, it has been a hell of a first 3 years, and definitely here's to the next 3. But for tonight, let's talk the draft. Welcome back to the PewterCast. We are here to talk about the draft. And Ren, we've already kind of referenced it a little bit, buddy. This was a head scratcher of a night, of a weekend, really, I guess. Except for the first round. The first round went pretty much according to script, except for somebody else who was there. We'll get into all of that as we kind of walk through this. But after months and months of speculation, debate, Ren, mock draft after mock draft, which this year was amplified thanks to the Draft Network's mock draft machine. And I know you were getting tweets about people asking you to grade their mock draft.
Yes, very many. And it was, I sort of said this when, I was at the Joe Bucs fan Bud Light draft party. Like I didn't even make it around the restaurant one time before people were coming up to me and they're like, Ren? I'm like, yeah. Like, I met, God, I even forgot his name twice. From San Diego. Is it Eric from San Diego?
Possibly.
Well, he sends his
guy who emails in. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I hadn't been in there like 15 seconds. I saw Kevin Sloan. Said hi to him. Then before I even got outside to go see what was going on outside, I ran into Eric from San Diego, if that is his name. It's definitely from San Diego. He brought a friend. I got some sound from him. Then I went outside and I ran into Stank Bastard. Like I haven't even gotten to the tent yet. So I was, saying that I was joking with him as we were talking. When I started doing this, I was like, wouldn't it be really cool if someone like recognized me or my voice at like a tailgate party, before a game? And with all these people ask me to grade their drafts, and I'm just trying to go like grab a beer and get my wings, and and I'm not trying to be like, oh well, you guys are all my way. It's very flattering, but it was I wasn't expecting so much response from people on Twitter about their drafts, or so many people recognizing me when I went to the draft party. So it was I don't want to say it was humbling, because I don't really get humbled that much. It's just not an emotion. It's just not an emotion that really sort of like bubbles to the surface in me, like ever. But it was nice and it felt good. But I was just sort of like thinking in my head, like, well, be careful what you wish for, stupid. Because now, like, you're starving. You want to have a beer. And, you kind of want to get set up with my sound. Because I collected a lot of sound from a lot of fans. Talked to Lee Isbitz twice. And got all this sound. And I just sort of want to get in the corner and get my day started. Right. And it took me about an hour to even get to there.
Yes.
And I don't think I got a beer till... Oh, actually, Stank Bastard went and bought me one. Thanks, Stank. And I didn't get to eat for probably another like 2.5 hours. And my plan was like to go in, grab a beer, grab some wings, find a corner, and get all situated. Right. And it went like the draft. It went nothing like that.
Nothing like you planned. Nothing like you thought it would. So, well, first of all, welcome to the world of celebrity, Red. You have made it, my friend. You have made it.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
No, listen. I will say this. So many of our listeners know that, and the episode is still forthcoming. It's a lot of audio that you collected, that I collected, that our friend Corey, who was actually at the draft in Nashville, collected, and it's just a lot of audio to sift through and try to put together as a show. But we will have this show coming out where we had all this audio from the various different parties that were happening. And we're going to take people inside, especially if you didn't get to attend either the Joe Bucs fan party, the official Buccaneers party at Raymond James Stadium, or the draft itself. We're going to take you inside those parties. And that's the whole idea behind that. That's still coming. But after the Bucs made their selection, and I was at Raymond James, you were over at the Joe Bucs fan party. I came down the road to see you guys before I left because I had to drive home that night. And I got to be honest with you, and this is just a huge shout out to the guys at the Bucs Mob. I think they've changed their name recently. I don't know what they're calling themselves right now.
I think they're the Loose Cannons.
Loose Cannons, yeah, something like that. But that group, that fan group right there, the guys at Joe Bucs fan, whoever set that up, especially in the wake of the crap that has been happening over there, I had 1,000 times more fun for like the 20 or 30 minutes that I was there than I did over at the actual stadium. Like and when I got there, it was probably less than half of the people, maybe not even a quarter of the people were still there. Because I got there late. So, you
didn't show up till the 20s.
Yeah, it was late, but they really put on a great party, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. So I just want to say on my own side, kudos to all of you guys who helped put on that that draft party. And it really was walking in there. You know, when you're in the stadium, let me back up. When you're in the stadium, there's a lot of people there, you know, and you get swallowed up. And so many of these people are just kind of in their own thing. And while being there, I did get noticed. A few people recognized my voice. A few people just recognized, I guess, my face and stopped me. And there was a handful of people that stopped and, you know, wanted to talk for a minute. But those of you, and a lot of you are probably listening to this right now, the ones that were at the draft party, you know, they're part of our listener base as well. And to get to interact with you guys and be fans together. Because at the stadium, it's kind of like everybody's being a fan, but by themselves.
It's such a big space.
It is. It really is. And even though there's so many people there, everybody's still kind of doing it on their own terms and sort of by themselves. Whereas really at this particular party, the Joe Bucs fan party, really everybody was doing it together. And it was just super, super cool. So with that said though, Ren, we're not here necessarily to talk about the responses and what happened when the picks were made, but to actually talk about the picks themselves. So let's walk through it. Let's go. Pick number 1, Devin White out of LSU. Surprise, 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 Ren.
Yeah. Bucs went chalk. It's no secret that I wanted Ed Oliver here, and lo and behold, Gruden goes Gruden, and we actually had the choice of Ed Oliver, defensive tackle out of Houston, Brent's boy, not because he liked him, but he's a Kentucky fan. Josh Allen out of the University of Kentucky, the edge rusher. And then Devin White.
My man Corey Hayes, he's also a big BBN fan too, so shout out to him. And Dick Vitale. Go ahead.
Okay. So I've gone on record saying that if the draft went the way I thought the Bucs were going to draft, which obviously it didn't, it'd been better to take a defensive lineman, an interior defensive lineman, then edge, then linebacker, as far as the way I thought the draft was going to fall and to be able to fill the holes. Mm-hmm. Now, I also went on record said I'm not going to be mad that if they take Josh Allen, or excuse me, Devin White, because my order, and actually this was my order. My order was Ed Oliver, Devin White, Josh Allen. There's something about Josh Allen, and I've heard sort of a lot of people say this, and it's just sort of a mystery. It's like he just came out of nowhere, you know, and he only did it 1 year, and it's kind of, but he did do it in the SEC. Mm-hmm. But when you watch sort of like his highlight videos you can find on YouTube, a lot of these highlight plays, he like goes unblocked. You know, he did rack up a lot of sacks, but you watch the highlight plays and like 7 of them, like no one picks him up. It's a dead run right to the backside of the quarterback. So he was 3rd on my list, and we ended up going Devin White. I think it's going to be a great fit. I've said this on Twitter before he got drafted. He is going to him and Levante David. And here's sort of the first thing that I figured out because of the Bucs not going interior defensive line at all. Mm-hmm. Well, they did late 7th rounder, but not putting early draft capital towards the interior defensive lineman, with the possibility, which I still think is like somewhere around 90, somewhere between 90 and 95% that Gerald McCoy is not coming back. Mm-hmm. They're going to use Devin White, Levante David as their pressure up the middle.
Right.
You know,
and they've said that. In press conferences,
exactly.
That's exactly what they've said. They said,
and
he's going to get press. Yeah, he's going to get pressure up the middle. He's going to be our guy to do that. So,
so I didn't listen. So I think it's a perfect fit for the defense. Once again, it wasn't my top guy, but now seeing the way the rest of the draft broke and who they selected, it was the right guy to pick. And then listening to his press conference, he said 2 things that I really, really liked. One was, he corrected himself. He was talking about, remember when he said he got delayed in Tampa? Yeah. And he said all these are TV appearances. He ended up just staying the night, at the Marriott, at the airport Marriott in Tampa. He goes, it was one of the longest delays. And then he stopped himself and he corrected himself. He goes, no, it was the longest delay. Right. Now that's how I like to speak, to talk, instead of just throwing like an always or every time or you never, like these absolutes. Mm-hmm. He instead of just bunching it in and making a story, he thought about it for a second, brought it back, and put it in the correct, I guess, verbiage so people will understand exactly how long this delay was, which to me means he's attention to detail. And his second one was how he came out and says, yeah, I can't wait to take my horses with me sort of wherever I get drafted. And then as soon as next day he lands, he gets in the press conference and he's like, this is a job. This is my job now. Like, I don't know what my schedule is going to be. I don't know what my workload's going to be. Where they are, they're getting the greatest care they can, greatest care in the world. So as far as bringing my horses down and taking time away from this job that they just hired me to do, I'm going to put that on delay and at least a year. And next year we'll see where we are. So those are the two things that I like best out of it, because you hear these guys talking like, I mean, we remember, last year's draft picks.
Oh, sure.
Okay. All right, Ronald Jones. And then nothing happens.
Sure.
So all that sort of like, I'm ready, let's get to work, we're going to win. That stuff I just sort of wash out. Right. But him correcting himself when he felt like he wasn't telling the truth and it wasn't the correct thing he was saying as far as his delay. And then when, even though his love for horses has been chronicled, get ready for lots of horse stories, everybody.
Right.
So, he's just like, look, they're fine. They're good. I've got a lot of other things going on right now that's the most important thing in my life besides these horses. They'll be there. They're fine. Mm-hmm. So that's what I liked about him.
Yeah. He, the thing I was really listening for when I listened to his press conferences is what Jason Licht and Bruce Arians both sort of described as this kid, and what I had seen, because I didn't get to watch it live, so it was after the fact, and what I had seen people like Mark Cook and some of these other people describe, like, I was looking, while you were listening to his words that he was saying, I was listening more for his
leadership.
presence and his air. Leadership, yeah, for sure, that was a big thing, but a lot of times it's almost intangible, like, it's just a feeling you get. I hate to say it that way because it's so wishy-washy when you put it like that, but
it's the feeling you get after you've talked to them, and their presence, and after they've left, the sort of the feeling you get, like you stand up a little straighter and like, wow, that was that was like what an impressive young man.
Solid guy. And
that made me feel good.
It confirmed what I felt was when people asked me after they picked Devin White, and actually ever since then, because I've been asked it multiple times a day, including today, and it's only been a handful of days, but still. And my answer has always been, listen, we got a really good player, possibly a really great player. Like, this is a good player, and you can make every argument in the world why they should have drafted this guy. What I'm not entirely sure of is if he was the right guy to draft.
Right.
You know what I mean? And because I tell you, you really had me convinced, and we'll talk about this, I think, as we go through the rest of the draft, but it was picking, you were very much an advocate for Ed Oliver at 5. And the basis that got me coming around to that thought was when you did your mock of saying, okay, let's take Devin White and see how the rest of the draft plays out. Let's take Ed Oliver, see how the rest of the draft plays out. And the draft as a whole worked out better.
You got better players
from Ed Oliver and versus in Devin White. What you discovered was you're kind of chasing positions.
You're chasing your guard. You're chasing your edge. You're chasing your interior defensive lineman.
Except the Bucs wound up not drafting a guard or an edge or a defense. No, actually, they did, I guess, draft a couple of those guys a little bit later. But
I got an edge.
Yeah, but that's not what the Bucs were going for. It's almost as if they were using a different philosophy and they were looking at something different. But
their priority with things to fix did not match up with mine and didn't match up with
anybody's.
Just about and I can take a little bit of blame to that because all those people that did say, hey, look at this. I repeated, I'm not like, all we need is a nickel corner. You can find him in day 3. Like, quit taking nickel, quit taking these starting outside corners early, because I even, I had this conversation with Isbeth. It's like, are any of these corners in this entire draft better at man press coverage than Vernon Hargreaves was coming out of college? No.
Okay.
Are any of these cornerbacks that we thought were going to be there? We thought Greedy Williams was going to be gone and Byron Murphy was going to be gone and DeAndre Baker. Williams was there, but he plummeted. Like he was there like 3 or 4 times.
Right.
Baker and Murphy were gone. So whoever's left, are these guys better at press man coverage than Carlton Davis after he's played 16 games in the pros? My answer was no. But they were looking for something different, not just press man coverage in their corner. So they had cornerback upgrade as far as body size, speed as their top priority, and I had,
right, and that's a a lot of the criticism, and I guess we're kind of transitioning off Devin White and kind of looking. I think we're prefacing the rest of the draft because the Devin White pick. That was the one we all knew. Everybody knew that one.
He's almost unbustable.
Yeah.
Like when we got O.J. Howard, you're like, this guy's going to be really good.
Right.
He just is. Like, he's a high character guy. Everybody loves him. He's never been in trouble.
And he's going to sell a lot of jerseys.
He's the best player at his position in the draft.
Exactly.
And, he went to a really big school. Like, he checks all the boxes off and on the field. Like, as long as he doesn't get a car accident and break his ankle.
Right. And as the word comes out, I mean, they had their eye on this guy. They liked him. He was their guy from the beginning. And they told him, if you're sitting there at 5, we're going to take you. And, Arians told us, he's like, hell no, we've had this thing figured out for weeks. We know what we're doing for weeks, So
Ed Oliver at 5.
Right. Or not. So they look at the rest of the draft. Now, here's my question, because you talk about, the criticism that I see that they're getting for the rest of the draft now is when you look at who they took cornerback, safety.
Right.
Day 2. Right. And then they took like an edge, defensive tackle. They took a wide receiver that we don't really need. They took a kicker.
They went edge, kicker.
Yeah.
Wide receiver, defensive interior lineman.
Yeah. So all of those, and those are crapshoots. Those are as much of a crapshoot as an undrafted free agent. A lot of times.
With this draft being so deep, that 5th round would have been the last spot where you could. There was players on the board, especially at guard,
right,
that you thought. I'm sure Buck fans thought, and I thought that could make a serious challenge to be week 1 starter at the right guard spot.
Yeah.
And they went kicker. We'll get there. We'll get there.
And we'll get there. But that's what I'm talking about when I sit back and say the most of the criticism that I see them taking is the idea that the Bucs did not address these big positions of need in the draft. Now, when I sit back and look at what happened, and you kind of, we're several days removed at this point, right? So we've had a chance to look at it. We've had a chance to listen to him and go, okay, when Coach said that, turns out he was actually telling us the truth. When he said that, he was just BSing us a little bit. But when you
I don't remember any BS.
That's actually what I was getting to. I'm
sorry.
When you look at it, turns out he was actually telling us the truth.
The murderer was a butler.
And then he told us it's fun when you tell people the truth because they think you're lying to them. So, and like people are I've seen lots of people out there grading this draft, and more so than ever.
You are going to get pushback on this.
I am.
I almost sent you a message like, you got to stop saying this on Twitter because it's really hard for me not to jump in and start yelling at you on Twitter. But go ahead, continue with your...
Great, because you can jump in and yell at me here on the podcast. No, here's the thing. To sit back and grade a draft right now, based on... Because what you're doing is you're using your thoughts and not you specific, though. I mean,
I got
specifically, you. But you're using your thoughts and your evaluation and your look with what you think the plan is going forward, and with knowing how the draft board fell. Because where I really wanted to go to this is, I'm not sure that they actually drafted the way they really wanted to draft. I don't know that they wanted to draft those 2 cornerbacks back to back and a safety on day 2. It's, as Jason Licht said numerous times,
3 times in the first 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
It's how the board fell.
It's the way the board fell.
And Coach Arians also said you take the best player available. Now that's with a little bit of a grain of salt because you're not taking quarterbacks every time they're available, right? But still, you take the best player available. This is how the board fell, and those were also still positions of need. You could make, and there are people out there making big arguments that the secondary is a much bigger position of need than the defensive line was, or even the offensive line. But,
well, go ahead.
But I mean, that's just personal evaluation. So I don't really understand how people can judge all of this, because where I'm still going to come back to with all of this is what I said last year. I've got to give them till week 6 or 8 before I can, judge whether or not these were good picks.
This is why there's 2 things in there where you have to sort of change your line of thinking. Okay. One is what you think people are judging. And I'm not talking about, Joe Schmo Bucs fan on Twitter. I'm talking about, the outlets, people that have check marks by their names, things like that. Like, you can't judge this draft. And then the second thing is, and I fall into this boat with you. Like, I'm right next to you rowing the oar on the second part.
Okay.
Is what we thought the the big holes were.
Yeah.
The gigantic position.
How we analyzed it.
Right.
Versus how they analyzed it.
Right. And that's why it took me a couple of days, because it took me at least 2 days to figure out, like, hey, you're wrong. Like, quit thinking like you've been thinking for 2-3 months now. Mm-hmm. Start from the beginning, have no expectations, and start looking at what they picked and what that means. So, one, the people that are drafting this, grading these drafts, it's about the players that they got, the potential that these players will get, and it is about where they got them in the draft. Okay, that's what they're doing. Like, when a wine gets a score, you go to the wine shop, 91, 93, 89, 97. Oh, that's a 97. What's that?
They score wine?
Yeah.
I thought those were just years. Well, it's a 97. That was a good year.
No, like on the shelf, like you go to the wine warehouse, there it tells you the name, and the biggest number on there is like it'll say 89, and that's its wine score. But when they,
I don't drink wine, so cool.
Okay.
But everybody else out there does. So.
But when they taste the wine, it's not ready yet. It's not mature. They're tasting it as it's still in the vats.
Okay. And
doing its thing. So it's a predictive score of what this wine will be once it ages. And that's what these people with the blue check marks are doing. They're taking what they know, taking their tape, taking their combine, what they know about them, and they're putting it all together, and then they're adding a little bit of what the team needs, and they're giving a score and where they ranked at. It's not this draft gets a B because I know all these players are going to be good players in the NFL. Mm-hmm. That's not what the draft grades are about. It's about how well they maneuver the draft, did they fill their needs, what type of players they got, and where they got them.
Fair enough.
Okay, now the second one is like I said, it's you have to wipe away what you thought the need was, and this was something. Remember when I said it's going to be fun to sort of try to learn the way to ask questions to Bruce Arians.
Yeah.
There's certain ways. There's certain things you can ask about. Certain things, there's a lot of things you can ask about. There's certain things you're not going to be able to ask about. So far, I haven't found any of those.
You're going to try not to get bruised.
Sure.
You were cuttered at the last Grizzly game. Now you're going to try not to get bruised.
Yeah, I got it. So, but as well as I, the older you get, the more you realize that it's not really what you're asking; it's how you're asking it.
Sure. And
the way you ask it won't be the same for every person. Mm-hmm. If you ask the same question the same way to 5 different people, one of those people is going to have an adverse reaction, maybe a defensive reaction, because that's just you didn't craft the question to that person. Mm-hmm. So what we've learned about this draft, 1, Jason Licht and Bruce Arians really, and especially Jason Licht, put a lot of – they think the kicker is a very important position.
Sure.
and they're good, and they don't care how many draft picks they use. They don't care where they got to find this person. Like, if this guy works out, great. We won't have this conversation anymore. But what we've learned is that they're not afraid to go up and use some draft capital on a field goal kicker. And there were a few teams in there that weren't afraid of either. One of them being, the Patriots. They did it. They traded up and got a kicker too. I think it was the 5th round or 6th round. But anyway, what I also learned is that Bruce Arians doesn't really value the guard position that high. What I also learned was when Bruce Arians told me that they were good up front, I didn't want to listen, and I chalked it up to, he's
meaning
just
they were good up front on the defensive side.
Front 7, yeah. They're good up front. Oh, we're good up front. And he just even tossed a hand up. Oh, yeah, we're good up front. What we need is to update the secondary. It's one of the first things he said. We got to go find a nickel. And you know what they did in round 2? They went and found a guy that can do both. And you know what else they have on the team? A guy that can do both.
Yeah.
So if we're going to the Sean Bunting pick,
let's talk about him.
What we got is we got Carlton Davis, and we got Vernon Hargreaves, and then we got an empty nickel spot where there is a huge glaring hole. What do they do with their 2nd round pick? They found a guy that can play inside and outside, Sean Bunting. So our starting nickel is either going to be him or Vernon Hargreaves. Now, whoever wins the outside 2 starting jobs between Bunting, Hargreaves, Davis, and Dean, we'll see. But there's definitely competition there. They got longer, they got taller, and they got faster at the cornerback position.
Yeah, and
that's not a bad thing.
Right, because don't forget, Mike Smith liked short corners. For whatever reason, like that was a thing.
I don't know if he liked short. I don't remember
but,
that.
I mean, that was the thing that we talked about.
But he didn't mind having short corners, I guess.
Okay, fair enough. But I remember that being a thing was he didn't require big, tall corners. Like he was, whatever
Grimes,
the
Vernon,
right verbiage is.
Ryan Smith, they're all below 6 feet.
Yeah.
A lot. They're not like 5'11 and a half. They're like 5'10 and shorter.
Yeah, and I can remember, drafts over the last couple of years. I mean, just since we've been doing this show for the last 3 years now, going into 4, that was a thing that people would talk about. Like, oh, why didn't we get this corner who's, X draft tall or X feet tall, So we got bigger.
We got faster.
Yeah.
What they realized that they were going to have to upgrade was speed and height. What they're going against in this division, with these tight ends, with these quarterbacks, with these running backs, and they did. So I mean, Dean is over 6 feet, over 6 feet tall, over 200 pounds. Who's the next pick out of Auburn? I don't know a lot about him, except that he's really fast and athletic. His agilities are a little suspect, but here's sort of the way I view this. In a Taz Bowl defense, I really feel they had to sort of bolster the back, okay? We got our linebacker. We got a corner who's versatile. There's already a corner who's versatile on the team. Then we sort of got our 4th corner. Like, they looked at the tape and said, Ryan Smith is not our 4th corner. We need another corner. This defense values cornerback positions very high. So they had to go get at least 2 because they only felt they were comfortable with 2 of all the corners they had. So it's not crazy to ignore the interior defensive line or the defensive line as a whole the first 2 days, especially when Bruce Arians told you in a press conference that we're fine up front.
Right.
And go with these guys. Now, it was a little perplexing because the way I've even said it before. I just said it like 5-10 minutes ago. Are any of these guys better than Vernon Hargreaves or Carlton Davis? We'll see. That's just my opinion is they're not, but we'll see. But we needed the 3rd one, and we needed depth, and we got it. And now we've got 4 cornerbacks on rookie deals.
So we bolster that position.
Yes.
And so what I don't know, and maybe you can help me with this, is so
I can't.
When the Sean Bunting pick came up, we don't know if he was actually the guy that they wanted to draft originally in the 2nd round in the first place, or if that position was the position they wanted to draft in the 2nd round in the first place. If that's who they were targeting, as much as they just came up to that pick, that defensive edge guy that they wanted was gone, or maybe that right guard that they wanted was gone, and this was the next best guy on their board.
Actually, I can't help you because I woke up.
See what happens when you let me talk?
No, that was the question I thought you were going to have, but as I was thinking about it, if guard was a bigger need, as we thought it was, above this cornerback, they would have found a guard somewhere in the second and third round. You know what I mean? They put their draft capital in the defensive backfield, and you can't tell me that if they were looking at guards in the second, that you couldn't find one by the seventh.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. I understand what you're saying, and Jason, like, that's the way the draft broke. That's the way the draft broke. Well, he might be saying, like, that's the way the draft broke. Yeah, we didn't get Byron Murphy, so we ended up with Carl Bunting.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't get, if there are any cornerbacks were taken in between, Bunting and Dean. Like, we didn't get, but this is the way. Like, this is the players at the positions where we thought we were targeting. So I think they could have went guard, or they could have went edge somewhere earlier if they wanted to, if their priority was, but it wasn't. Their first priority. Well, this has been a Jason a Jason Light staple, is he really does take BPA at a position of need.
Okay.
But the position of need is pretty much everybody on the team except for quarterback or somebody they signed at center. Like, we went tight end with O.J. Howard. We didn't need a tight end. But when they did their board, they got down to O.J. Howard, and they said, if he's there, we're not going to move for him, and we're going to take him. And what happened? He was there, so we took him. Why? Because he's the BPA. So, but after that, I think that's sort of where this algorithm starts to come in, where we like to say we're position of need matches player on the board. I think that if they really were worried about guard being a problem or interior defensive line being a problem, that they would have found somebody in the second or third round, or maneuvered, which you've seen him trade. Like, he went up and got Kappa last year. He made a move to like, this is a need. We like the player. He's there. I don't think he's going to last much. He's not going to fall to us. We got to go get him. And it just, that's, yes, the draft broke the way to get these players, but I'm not sure the position would have changed, because a lot of these positions that we thought were needs weren't drafted at all.
Yeah. I 100% know exactly what you're saying. But if there's one thing that I've after this draft that I feel like I've said this, I think, a little bit before, but I'm going to expand this beyond our own team, meaning the current players that we've had on the team, to the organization as a whole. It's almost like we don't know this organization anymore, like with this new regime.
We have to. Yeah, we have to relearn what they prioritize as being a successful football team.
Right, exactly. So, all of those things are really it just feels like it's up in the air. And in so many cases, like, okay, so they drafted all these guys. I come down to a spot where I'm like, all right, let's wait and see what happens in the season. Like, that's who they took. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to jump to judgment on this. And let's see how it works out, because I tell you what, if we make it to game 6 or game 8 or game 16 and we're on the winning side of most of our games, these guys look like they're geniuses. If we're on the side that we're used to being on, I don't know how it's going to go for them. I really don't.
Should have taken a guard in the second.
Yeah. It's we're gonna draft back around here. So you're talking about Bunting. You started talking about Jamal. I'm not sure what
I think it's Jamal.
Jamal Dean. Both of these guys, cornerbacks, defensive backs.
Mm-hmm.
And then we take not the Kentucky guy that I wanted, but still a Kentucky guy. Mike Edwards is a safety. Who is not just a safety, but I think he comes up and plays the slot sometimes too.
He can,
yeah.
But Jason Light said they're gonna play him at safety.
They're gonna look at him in safety. So I think the question that I have that comes back to it is: are these guys intended as upgrades and replacements, and they intend for these guys to start, or did we just spend our second and third round draft picks on depth?
That's what I thought after day 2 before day 3 started. And that's what I'm like, okay, like, why does Jason Licht still have his job? Because if we're drafting starters, then you messed up on the Hargraves, the MJ Stewart, the Carlton Davis, the Justin Evans, the Jordan Whitehead picks. And if you're putting them for depth, then why? Because we need holes at interior offensive line, at, interior defensive line.
Right.
So,
and Jason Licht came out and said, these picks are not an indictment against the current guys who are here, although it kind of feels like it.
I thought so at first, too, till I started thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like Bunting is going to either start outside somewhere and become and move into or win the nickel corner spot. I think Vernon Hargraves is going to start outside somewhere or move into the starting nickel corner spot. I think that Carlton Davis and Jamal Dean are sort of in this battle for who's going to start the outside corner. Whoever wins or loses, we still have a corner with high draft capital. We needed the depth at corner. Okay? And the way I look at it is to rationalize it. What were they thinking is, there's not a corner like in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round that if one of these 3 guys who are going to be starters, calling Bunting, Vernon, and Carlton Davis, goes down, then you're back to Ryan Smith and whoever you just drafted like in the 6th.
Right.
So a part of it's depth, but Jamal Dean could potentially win the starting job, but I'm not upset with depth because it's such a position of a position of value. Now we go to the safety, which is, I forgot his name, Murphy? No, the
guy that we drafted. You mean?
Yeah,
Mike Edwards.
Edwards.
Yeah.
We go to Edwards. This is a little scary. Now there's 2 ways you look at this as, okay, MJ Stewart's a bust. And we're going to keep him around his rookie deal because he's cheap and maybe he can fill in and be an injury and be a depth piece. Okay. I think that's just kind of what's going to happen. Jordan Whitehead was a 4th round pick. You don't really depend on a lot of 4th round picks to go in there and start. Or, even though he did get a lot of playing time, I can see that a 4th round pick where it's like, okay, maybe it wasn't a great safety class. Maybe the guy, they were targeting wasn't there, or the position that they really wanted, and this ended up being their best player on the board. I can get that. Okay, if Edwards and Whitehead are like Whitehead or Edwards can be like a little upgrade over Whitehead because they are trying to fix the defensive backfield, or, which is even the scariest thing, is Justin Evans like missed the end of last season with a turf toe. Yeah. Like NFL players have retired because of turf toe, and it's been 7 months, and he still wasn't out there for this last little mini camp because of his toe. So yeah, you needed, unless you wanted to run with Whitehead and Stewart, if Justin Evans really is hurt, I mean, if he's in danger of missing this season too, or maybe even the rest of his career, we needed a safety. Right. So those are some ways you can look at it. And in day 2, I was just confused as everybody else. I woke up after day 2, like, why does Jason Licht have a job? Then sort of like settling down and going, okay, let me look at this differently. Obviously, they're smarter than I am when it comes to football. I mean, we know this. So I'm missing something. So I had to sort of like take all my preconceived notions and throw them in the garbage can and start all over. And this is where I've gotten, as far as day 2 draft picks.
Yeah, I did not go on that same route, but I think I wound up in the same spot as you for that. So, I mean, in the end, looking back at it, I don't think that anyone who rationally looks and sees what's going on out there could say that the secondary as a whole wasn't a huge position of need.
They were undefendable.
Yeah. I mean,
their play is undefendable.
Yeah, exactly. So when okay, so our offensive line, right? Our offensive line last year wasn't great. Anybody going to argue that? No, they weren't great. But if you had to pick between the offensive line, how they performed, versus how the secondary performed last year.
And you had to blame the season on one of those two things.
And who is it?
The defense, the defensive secondary.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Okay. And Bruce Arians told us when he came in, he's like, look, our offense is set. We're okay on offense.
He did.
A couple little pieces here and there. We're okay on offense. It's the defense. And I don't know. I don't remember if he said the defense meaning as a whole or if he specifically said the secondary. I don't remember which one he said. But he said it's the defense and he said it's special teams. Those are the two things that need to get fixed.
Defense and the kicker.
Yeah. And what did we do in this draft?
We went defense and a kicker.
Yeah. And somehow threw in a wide receiver.
And Deshaun Jackson.
Right. So let's let's get to that. We bring in Mike Edwards. By the way, going back to those whole drafting things, or the grades on the drafts. I am looking at one thing here in front of me that has Devin White as a B+, Sean Bunting as a C, Jamal Dean as a B, and Mike Edwards also as a B. And if you look down, it actually, we didn't get anything much lower than that for the rest of the draft. So apparently we got pretty good value for where we drafted mostly.
The one I like to watch, I stumbled upon, and I think Greg Allman tweeted out, it was CBS.
Okay.
And they just did excellent, above average, average, below average. Like those were their grades.
Sure.
And we got above average. And I would only say there was probably like 5 teams that got an excellent.
Okay.
One of them was in our division, the Panthers.
And it's funny because there's a lot of Bucs fans out there who are calling this the worst draft ever.
Yeah, and I get it. And I think they just got to sort of, do what I did. Like, okay, whatever you had in your mind obviously was not. And I'm not like, telling those people that their feelings are misplaced, because you know what? I was right there. Like, even after the draft was over, like, I felt a little better. I'm like, okay, they drafted an edge. All right. Okay, I feel good. And that lasted one round. They went to the kicker. I was down in the dumps. Like, I didn't even want to watch it anymore after that. I'm like, oh. So I'm right there with you. Those people out there that hate this draft. I was right there with you pulling that oar, like I said before. I would rather be the guy beating the drum because it's a much easier job. Yeah. But I don't deserve to. I deserve to be on the wooden bench, with my bedpan underneath me, ankles shackled, wrists shackled.
Fair enough.
Shackled to that oar and just pulling a right along with you, like But it, like I said, it took me a few days, and now I'm starting to realize what this staff prioritizes, and they went after and they got it.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens.
See if they're good.
Yeah, we'll see what happens next year, what the staff prioritizes next year. But let's continue. So we've made it through the first 2 days. Now we enter into day 3. And the first pick that we take on day 3 is another linebacker, Anthony Nelson. The more I hear about this guy, and I haven't watched any tape on him yet, but I'm excited to, because this guy, to me, is probably the most curious out of everybody. Like, he's got the most interest of me right now out of anybody that we've drafted this year. How'd you feel about this guy?
Well, this is something that we haven't talked about, but something that the first round pick White is. He's versatile. I talked about Bunting, how he can play inside outside. Versatile. You talked about God, I forgot his name again. Wilson Murphy,
the safety.
Yeah.
Mike Edwards.
Edwards. Yep. It's going to take me a while. Sorry, fans. Edwards. You talked about how he has a little versatility.
Yeah.
And I think this is the guy. Is their edge? Is what they liked about him is his versatility. He's like 6'7", but he's not that heavy. He's only like 215 or something. Or no, he's got to be a little heavier than that. Or maybe he's not. I don't know. But he's like 6'7", and I know that his weight is for me, it's a little eyebrow raising. Like, you're 6'7", and that's how much you weigh. But the guy's strong, and what he's really good at is sort of this bull rush and overpowering thing. High motor. I know some draft pundits were comparing to Carl Nassib. Jason Light had seen it so much, he actually said in his interview, like, I think it's unfair to compare him to Carl Nassib, but they're really the same guy. Like, their best trait is their high motor, Mm-hmm. Anthony's a little stronger, maybe a lot stronger, but he doesn't really do anything well, He's not a speed guy. He's a bull rush guy. Doesn't have a lot of counter moves. Doesn't have a spin move, really. He just gets there on strength and effort. But what he can do is slide inside and line up over the guard, and he can hold up against the run. So his stats show that he can get to the passer, but he's big enough, and his play shows that he can hold up against the run, which makes him versatile, which makes him he can play on 3 downs if some things go wrong with injuries. Mm-hmm. But now we got a versatile guy, a piece on the defensive line that I was looking for in day one, that can do some things. We got a little younger on the defensive line. We really needed to.
So this guy here, I'll tell you something. I'll be really interested with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not ready to do it yet. But when we kind of get to a spot where we start looking at what the depth chart on this team might look like, seeing where this guy falls in, because we know Levante is going to be there. We know Devin White's going to be at the top of that list. After that, we don't. Like, there's a couple of the free agent guys that we brought in. There's a couple of lower, depth charted guys from the past couple of years. And then this guy, like, I'm real curious to see if this guy rises above some of the people we have on the depth chart already.
Like Will Golston?
No, like Riley Bulla.
No, he's a defensive lineman, Brent.
It has here. Oh, well, they're telling me here he's a linebacker.
He's not.
He's a defensive lineman.
Okay, he's a linebacker, as in he's an edge guy in a 3-4 defense.
Okay, fine then. Noah Spence. We'll go like all these guys. Like, I'm curious to see where he's going to go, because I think, and that actually makes a lot more sense. Yeah, because one of the things that I saw was people talking about he's like a second Carl Nassib.
Did you not? Were you not listening to me at all?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
In all of those things. But I remember you, and I was confused because I'm like, wait a minute, he's supposed to be a linebacker, but yeah, they're kind of in that same area. And seeing.
Oh, you thought I was talking about like body type and
stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was.
So you thought I was just being an idiot?
Well, no, I was trying to put it all together in my brain. But either way, this guy is probably the one that piques my interest the most out of everybody. And he actually got the highest grade on this particular draft grading system.
Because of his value.
Sure.
Where he was drafted.
There you go. Next one. Let's talk about this guy. We got a new kicker.
Do we have to? I don't want to talk about him.
We got a new kicker.
We did, and I'm not mad at the pick. I have to come. Okay,
a lot of people are mad at the pick.
I'm mad at the pick.
Yeah.
Okay, but for my own sanity, I just, like I said somewhere in the beginning or earlier in this pod, like, Jason Light is gonna keep shooting and using draft capital to find a kicker. He values a kicker more than anybody else. He doesn't want to wait till undrafted free agency to find one. He wants to find that guy that you can plug in and not worry about for like the next 2 contracts. That's what he wants to do. Gets this guy on a 4-year rookie deal. Then after that, they're going to come up with some contract and pay him. And then he's going to be here for put him on a 6-year deal. So he'll be here 10 years. And he's trying to find that guy. Swung and missed huge with Aguayo. Has taken shots with Rotten Tomatoes to the face for years now. And since he didn't pan out, well-deserved. But like he said, he's like, well, if you had a busted wide receiver in the 2nd round, you're not going to take another one in the 5th round 2 years later? Yeah, I see what you're saying, but it's a kicker.
Right.
But then, the pro people are like, well, they scored the most points than any team, than anybody on the team. Okay, yeah, but it's a kicker. You do one thing, and it's really strange how you can't find 32 of these guys.
Yeah.
Kicking league wide should be 93%.
You'd think,
you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I don't know. I'm not, I also, think that everyone on the PGA Tour should make a putt inside 12 feet, like all the time. Like, this is your job. It's only 12 feet, man. Like, and I understand the Masters and the Open, but I'm talking like week in, week out on, these courses in Hawaii and Ohio and stuff like that. But, I can't do it. So I really don't have, I don't really have sort of a leg to stand on. But I don't care what his percentages were. I don't care how many extra points he's made. I don't care that he's bigger than a kicker and he's like the next Janikowski who just retired. I don't care about any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I understand Jason Light. You want to find a kicker. You're going to shoot your shot and you're going to keep shooting until you get one. I hope you've got it so we don't have this conversation ever again.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then let's just keep moving on. Scott Miller. Wide receiver, taken 6th. Another Kentucky guy. Only this time he's out of Bowling Green, but still, I'll claim it.
Is Bowling Green? Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll claim
All
it.
Right.
He was just about to say, is Bowling Green in Kentucky? Yes,
I was.
It is. Bowling Green is in Kentucky.
Don't get snotty with me like that's common knowledge.
What? Everybody doesn't know about Bowling Green, Kentucky?
Okay, Brent. What's their mascot?
Spiders.
Nope.
That was a total guess. I think it was something I saw you tweet earlier.
Yeah, it's Richmond. Yeah.
I have no idea. I really don't.
I think they're the Falcons.
Okay. Bowling Green is like the 3rd or 4th largest city in the state of Kentucky, but it's everything that it sounds like it is. So, like whatever picture you have, whatever stereotypical picture you have when thinking about Bowling Green, Kentucky, that's it.
You are correct.
But, they have one of the universities there. So,
Urban
wide
Meyer
receiver,
started his job, started his coaching career there.
Yeah, there you go. I've heard a lot of stuff come out of Bowling Green. So, Scott Miller, wide receiver. Do we really need another wide receiver? I mean, we signed Perriman for $4 million. We got our guys. Like, this is another one. Is this the flyer? Like, what are we?
It's a little bit of a flyer. He's a track guy.
Okay.
We know Bruce Arians likes speed. We got Perryman. Okay, say it doesn't work out. This is how the board breaks pick. Jason Light said in the interview that, they didn't really like a scout rolled through there and found him, and then they sort of left him alone and just like through, telephone calls and text messages. Hey, any other teams talk to you? Hey, any other teams talk to you? And then Jason Light said when he found out that other teams had, that's when they sent scouts out there and put him through a workout. And because I think what they're hoping was we're going to get him as an undrafted free agent. No one's going to know when we bring him into camp. But once, he sort of started hitting other people's radars, they had to up the guy. I guess it's this year's Justin Watson, I mean, I don't mean to say that because, I'm not, they're both white. I think, everyone's like, it's Adam Humphries' replacement. I think he's more like Deshaun Jackson's replacement.
So what's Perriman? Because isn't that what we brought Perriman in?
Well, but Perriman's on a 1-year deal, and if he does really well, or proves that he can stay healthy and catch the ball, the Bucs aren't going to pay him. You got Chris Godwin and Mike, and
okay.
They're not going to, so you still got to keep putting people in this, in this hopper. We got Justin Watson, he's fast. He's not, Miller fast. This guy's fast. He's track speed fast. So that's sort of where I'm looking at it. It's sort of like the board sat there. There it is. We like speed. We're gonna need speed. Perriman's probably not gonna be with us next year. This is a true sort of like BPA. He didn't return a lot of kicks, and we don't really have anybody on this roster right now that return kicks. Like Humphries is gone, Quiz is gone. Like those are our returners. Like they're gone. So, I mean, we did not need another wide receiver, but spending on a 6th-round draft pick on a guy with that type of speed, I don't think I'm ever going to get mad at it. It's not like the interior defensive lineman I wanted in round 4 had fallen to round 6, and I'm like, just take this guy, like Tristan Hill, who was sort of my round 4 interior defensive lineman draft crush, went like round 2. I think he was the Dallas Cowboys' first pick. So nailed that one. Just saying. But yeah, so he's fast. That's what he is. He's small. He's fast. Real fast.
All right. So should be, yeah. I mean, at this point, we're really just see what we got when we get them, right?
Yeah.
Where they shake out. Final pick. Finally, Ren, we addressed the defensive line.
No, we didn't.
Actually, I guess we did that with Nelson if he's really an edge. But Terry Beckner Jr. Out of Missouri, defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Stevie T, part 2?
No, I don't think this guy's even going to make the roster.
Really?
I don't.
Yeah.
I think everybody else has a really good chance. I think, the kicker's such a crapshoot. I mean, they're going to put competition there. So Santos or this new guy from Utah State, Pudgy Wudgy Man, is going to, one of these two guys is going to be the kicker spot.
And, on that, and they're probably going to give the weight or the benefit to the guy that they drafted.
Yeah,
if they're equal, they'll give it to the draft.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly, because he's cheaper and you drafted him.
Right.
It looks good.
He could potentially last longer, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's all the reasons in the world to do that. It just makes sense.
So I think the first 6 draft picks are almost locks to make this team.
Wow. Okay.
Or first 5. First 5.
Okay.
Miller will see, and I think it's a big uphill battle. I think it's a big uphill, not as big as a 7th round pick, but we got Speed and Bobo, and we just got Watson, and of course we got Perryman, but it's going to be sort of. I think Miller might be being a practice squad guy if they can sneak him through waivers. I don't know, but I just will say the top 5 I think are going to be locks if he wins. If he wins the kicker job. So the last 2 guys, and especially the last guy, I haven't even learned his name. I sort of looked at him, at his stats, checked the spider graph, and I'm just like, yeah, this is just.
I couldn't even say junior correctly. So
I'm just like, I'm not, and I hope I'm proven wrong, obviously, but I don't think this guy's really got much of a chance to make the roster.
Right. So what's really left is the Bucs have to figure out how to pay him.
Oh yeah, here we go.
And no, I'm not going to dive into that, except just to say Jason Licht said they have ways that they can do it, and they do. The Bucs have options. They don't have to cut a specific player and get rid of that. Although I think it'd probably be the easiest way to do it. But they're, you do it, you create a hole, and we'll see. We'll talk about that more.
A big hole,
yeah.
And if they do that, Beckman Jr. is making the team.
Yeah. So we'll discuss that down the road, as we kind of see it play out. But they really just have to figure out. So overall, now that you've sat on it for a day or two, Ren, how do you feel about this draft?
I like it. I mean, obviously there's things that I wish they would have done different. I did not enjoy, and I've talked about a little bit in using that 5th rounder for a kicker.
Yep.
But hey, once I've said this a couple of times, Jason Licht obviously values that position a lot higher than I do. I do not have his job, and he does. So, I will say that he wins on that. I don't have a problem with it. But if you take away these preconceived notions in your head that this is where the coaching staff perceived the holes were, then the draft is really good. They got good players. They got some impact players. Like I said, I think whatever sort of shakes out at corner, I think it's sort of going to be Dean or Davis. One of those guys isn't going to get as much playing time as they want. Hopefully no one gets injured and they all stay healthy. But if you go all the way back to the 5th round and the kicker makes the team and becomes the kicker, besides Dean, unless he beats out Carl Davis, all these people are going to play a lot, and we'll still see with Edwards, not Edwards. Damn it, what? Is it Edwards? Do we have two? Oh yeah, Edwards.
Mike
Yeah,
Edwards,
Edwards safety. That's still scary to me. But yeah, I like it. It didn't go the way I thought. The way I wanted. But after taking a step back once again and looking about what they're obviously telling me they're prioritizing, then yeah, they did a really good job.
All right. I'm going to maintain my and see method or attitude that I kind of adopted last year. Actually, I'm just gonna have to wait and see how this all shakes out. I don't hate it though. You know what I mean? I was confused by it at the time.
I was very confused.
I still find it highly interesting and perhaps even suspect, maybe might be a word to use. But at the same time, like, I'm reminded this is a new coaching staff. One of the benefits that they have when they go look at the tape, is they have a record of what the play call was.
Yep.
Like, so they know what was actually supposed to happen. And they can really evaluate all of these guys. Like, we can go watch game film and, break down each and every single play, but we don't necessarily know what the play call was, right? Like, that's always the caveat. Well, these guys do. They also know what they're looking for. Like, they have a, dare I say, a vision. I mean, Todd Bowles knows it seems like he knows what he wants his defense to be able to do. And he's communicated that to Bruce and ultimately to Jason. And like, they kind of have an idea of where they're going, and it's different from where I would have thought they would have wanted to go, and where I think a lot of fellow Bucs fans have wanted to go. So I am willing to kind of go, okay, you see things that I don't, I can rest in that, and let's see how this works out. And if we get through the season and you guys do well, then you guys are the heroes. And if you don't, then we're in the same situation that we've been in. And we'll talk about it then. So I'm sitting back maintaining that kind of attitude, but I think I like this draft. I'm not going to grade it, but
I give it 2 question marks.
Ren gave me a smirk there. You guys couldn't see it out there, but he gave me a nice little smirk. I think I like it. Devin White, I think, is going to be a great player, regardless if he was the quote unquote right pick. Some of these other guys, I'm interested to see how it all shakes out. So we'll see where they are, and we'll see where some of these players that current players on the roster, where they come back to.
Yeah, it's what training camp's all about. We'll see where these guys shake out.
Yeah. Well,
if they can climb the social ladder.
There you go. Well, Ren, as you finish all your little packing details for your big trip across the pond,
I'm done.
Well, there you go. What you got? Any final thoughts as we close out the show tonight?
Crazy. It was just like confused, I think is the best way to do it. And I was confused for days.
Yeah.
But like I've said many times, like, I sort of had to throw away all these things that I thought I knew were absolutely for true and actually look at what they're telling me. Bruce, he said they loved he said he loved Peyton Barber and they want to give Rojo a shot. They didn't draft a running back.
Right.
They said that up front in the defense they were fine. They did get 2 defensive linemen, but not a lot of high draft capital in there, and not an interior defensive line where I thought they were the weakest, especially coming into 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So
let me ask you this. Let me go back. Okay. When you now sit back and you go, okay, I thought we were really weak at the defensive line. They obviously looked at the secondary and said, no, that's where we really need to focus. Mm-hmm. Do you still think that we were weakest up on the defensive line, or are you like, no, actually I see what they were talking about and I think they're right?
No, it's a little mixed. The one thing that I didn't do, and I kept avoiding it, it's like, you don't have that one conversation you have to have with your significant other, but you just sort of keep putting it off because, you did something wrong, and like, it's not gonna, like, I'm kind of get yelled at here. I ignored the depth at the cornerback position when I was doing my mocks and where they're going. So what I'm doing is praying that Carlton Davis or VH3 didn't get hurt, because if they did, and the roster, stays as it is, a lot of people said, "Oh, just bring in a veteran corner." There's no money. Like, I mean, they could make it, but if why would you do that if you just draft them, and then you got them under control for 4 years at a really cheap price? So, I'm sure they looked at the cornerback class and decided they looked at the draft. They're like, "Hey, we like the options at our draft better." So that's where I still think I wanted to go defensive line 3 of the first 4 picks, because that was the strength of the draft, and I think it would have really solidified that defensive line going forward. What I ignored was that they brought guys in free agency to help the defensive line, plus they put a lot of resources into it the year before. And they brought a free agency. Plus, they had a guy who, was a no-show last year that now is getting a rebirth there. And I just kind of tossed all that away and went, no, this is the strength of the draft. This is what you do. So I'm not really sure if my philosophy was wrong.
Okay.
Because I really would like to see this. I was really hoping to see this team with, 3 defensive linemen drafted in the first 4 rounds. But I understand 100% the way why they did the way they did is going, basically all defense and BPA in the 1, and then like all secondary day 2. I get it. I understand it. I'm not mad at it. Once again, they know more than I do and will forever and ever when it comes to evaluating football talent. So who am I to say?
All right. Yeah, I'm kind of. I think that's exactly where I am. It's just they know more about it than I do. Who am I to say? Let's see how it plays out. All right, Ren. Well, man, why don't we go ahead and get out of here? Why don't you tell the folks out there where they can find you? Maybe not for the next 2 weeks, but after that, on the internet.
I think I'll be posting a little bit on Twitter, but probably not football. It'll be more of like, hey, look at me at the Coliseum. Hey, look at me.
Look, here's some really old stuff over here.
Yeah, look how old this building is. It's a grocery store. Who knew? Here's me with the Pope. Best place you can find me on Twitter, at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk some Buccaneers football, except for the next 2 weeks.
And if you guys want to get a hold of me, you can find me at Brent Allen Live. You want to yell at me about anything? Hey, go ahead. Shoot me a DM. You can find me on Instagram as well, also at Brent Allen Live. And if you want to find the show, you can find the show at the PewterCast on Twitter and on Facebook. And you can shoot us an email to thepewtercast@gmail.com. We will read that on an upcoming episode of the PewterCast. Well, Ren, bonsoir. Is that French? That might be French.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Goodbye. Ciao.
Ciao. All right. Well, Ren, ciao. Have fun, my friend. We'll see you on the backside, and to all our fellow Bucs fans out there, we'll close the show out. As always, go Bucs.